There's a specific kind of tiredness that comes after you've been let down enough times. It doesn't feel like sadness anymore. It feels like a quiet decision that happened gradually. The kind where you didn't choose it exactly, but you woke up one day and the math had already changed. Not, I'm gonna stop trusting people. Nothing that deliberate. More like, the calculations started running differently. Reaching out started costing more than it used to. Showing up fully started feeling like a bet you'd already lost before. And you didn't do that on purpose. It just happened. What this video is about is that specific shift, not the individual disappointments, though those matter, and they're gonna get their due here. But what happens inside you after enough of them? The thing that builds, the system that forms, and specifically, where it starts working against the very thing it was built to protect. Let's start with how the record actually accumulates. Anyone who's been through this knows it doesn't usually start with one big thing. It's rarely a single betrayal that changes the math. It's smaller than that. It's the friend who said they'd be there and wasn't. The plans that got made and quietly unmade. The moment when something hard was happening in your life and you reached out, and the response was surface level, technically present, actually absent. It's the investment that didn't come back. The check-ins that only moved in one direction. The version of you that showed up fully and found out, slowly, that fully wasn't being met. One of those, you absorb. 2, you start to notice. 5, 6, 7, something shifts in the accounting. And what nobody tells you is that this shift isn't dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. You don't decide to become more guarded. You just are. You find yourself hesitating before you reach out. Editing what you share before you say it. Keeping a little more back than you used to. And from the outside, it probably looks like independence. Maybe even confidence. But you know what it actually is. It's the very specific exhaustion of someone who has done the math enough times to know what the expected value of social risk looks like when the evidence keeps coming back the same way. Here's the part that doesn't get talked about. That shift is not irrational. It is not an overreaction. It is not you becoming someone who can't trust people. It is an extremely logical response to a pattern of real events that actually happened. The question, and this is what this whole video is actually about, is what that logical response builds inside you over time, and what it starts to cost. Now let's look at how that protection actually forms. Here is something that research on social pain keeps returning to in different forms. The brain does not treat social risk like a conscious decision you make each time. It treats it like a pattern recognition problem. After enough experiences of a specific kind of pain, the unreturned reach out, the absent support, the investment that didn't come back, your nervous system starts building a model. Not a belief you hold consciously. A model that runs underneath the conscious level. And what that model does is start calculating before you have any information about the specific person or situation in front of you. Before this person has done anything. Before this conversation has gone anywhere. Before there is any actual evidence, the system is already running the numbers. That's the shift you felt happen. That's what it was. Not a character change. Not you becoming someone colder or more closed. An automatic system, built from real evidence, that learned to run ahead of experience in order to protect you from a specific kind of pain before it could happen again. Let that sit for a second. That system is not a flaw. It is, in the most literal sense, intelligent adaptation. Your nervous system took the data you gave it and built the most efficient protection it could. The cost came in. The pain was real. And the system said, "We are not doing that again." And it got to work. And here is what nobody explains clearly. The problem is not that the system exists. The problem is what the system does next. Because a system built to protect you from specific people in specific conditions does not stay that specific. It generalizes. It takes the features of the experiences that hurt, the dynamic, the pattern, the feeling in the room, and it learns to recognize anything that resembles them. And resemblance, for a nervous system running on pattern matching, is a very low bar. Someone who asks for a lot. Someone who is warm but inconsistent. Someone who feels a little like the last person who left. The system doesn't wait to see what they do. It has already calculated. And it has already started pulling you back. And this is where the real cost becomes visible. This is the part that takes a moment to see clearly. So stay with it. The system your nervous system built was built on real data. Every person who didn't show up. Every reach out that disappeared into silence. Every time you were fully present and found out the presence wasn't mutual, that data was real. The system it built makes complete sense, but here is where it starts to cost you more than it saves. The system does not distinguish between the people who created the original evidence and the people who are simply present right now. It runs the same calculation, the same anticipatory cost-benefit, the same quiet pullback, regardless of whether this specific person has given you any reason for it. And what that means, in practice, is this. You are not protecting yourself from the people who let you down. You are protecting yourself from everyone, including, and this is the part that makes the protection so quietly devastating, people who are nothing like the ones who hurt you. People who might actually show up. People who might actually return the investment. People who might be genuinely different, and who you will never find out about, because the system ran its calculation before they had a chance to show you anything. Let that sit for a second. Here's what that means about you. It does not mean you gave up on connection. It means you wanted it enough, cared about it deeply enough, that losing it repeatedly became genuinely costly. The protection you built is proportional to how much it mattered. You don't build a system that elaborates around something you stopped caring about. Not broken, just in the wrong conditions. And the wrong condition specifically is this: a protection system built for the past running on the present. A gate that was made for specific people that now opens for almost no one. The cruelest feature of this mechanism is that it protects you most aggressively, exactly when you are most tired of being alone. The more the loneliness accumulates, the more expensive the risk feels, the tighter the system runs, which means the people who need connection most are often the ones the system makes it hardest for. That's not a character verdict. That's the mechanism. And now you can see it. If what just landed here is something you want to go deeper on, specifically the gap between understanding this and being able to actually move through it, there's a resource in the description built exactly for that. It's called the friendship gap. It goes directly into the emotional break this video just named, what it's made of, where it lives, and what actually interrupts it. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment. So let's be honest about what's actually happening here and what a real path forward looks like, because this is not a video that ends with, take a risk and see what happens. That's not an answer. Not for someone who has the evidence you have. The goal is not to undo the protection. The goal is something more specific than that, and more achievable. The distinction this comes down to is this. There is a difference between your system firing on evidence and your system firing on resemblance. Evidence is something this person, in this situation, has actually done. They said they'd show up and didn't. They went quiet when something hard was happening. They took consistently more than they gave. When the system fires on evidence, that's the system working. That's the information it was built to process, and it deserves to be taken seriously. Resemblance is different. Resemblance is, this person reminds me of the dynamic that hurt me. This feels familiar in a way that makes me want to pull back. The calculation is already running, and I don't have any actual data yet. When the system fires on resemblance, that's the generalization. That's the over-application. That's the place where the protection has moved beyond its mandate. And here is the one thing to actually carry out of this video. The concrete thing. The thing you can actually use. When you feel the pullback start, when the calculation begins running, ask yourself one question. What has this specific person actually done? Not what they remind you of. Not what the last person did. Not what the pattern suggests. What has this person, in this situation, actually given you data on? If the answer is nothing yet, that's the system firing on resemblance. And you get to notice that. You don't have to override it. You don't have to perform openness you don't feel. You just get to know what's actually happening. You get to see the mechanism running. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, that's enough to create a small pause between the calculation and the pullback. A pause where something different might be possible. That's not being vulnerable again. That's not returning to the conditions that built the system. That's developing what the protection never had. The ability to tell the difference between the past and the present. Between the people who gave the system its evidence and the people who are simply here right now. Your protection system was built for specific conditions. The people who are nothing like those conditions deserve to be seen on their own terms. And so do you. If this opens something you want to take further, specifically the gap between seeing this clearly and being able to move through it, the friendship gap is in the description and the pinned comment. That's where this goes next. What was the moment when you realized the math had changed? when you noticed the system had already made a decision before you consciously had. Let's come back to where this started. That quiet decision that happened gradually. The one you didn't choose exactly. That just settled in over time as the evidence accumulated. Here is what that decision actually was. It wasn't giving up. It wasn't becoming someone who doesn't want connection, or someone who decided people couldn't be trusted, or someone who chose independence over belonging. It was a system doing what systems do when they're given enough data of a specific kind. It protected you in the only way it knew how, which was to make the cost of losing visible before you could lose again. You didn't stop wanting it. You started protecting it. And there is something important in that distinction. Something worth holding on to, because the person who builds a system that elaborate is not someone who gave up on connection. They're someone for whom connection mattered enough to be worth protecting. Whatever happened with the friendship or the friendships that brought you to this video, the ones that faded, the ones that didn't return what you gave, the ones where you showed up fully and found out it wasn't mutual, that was not a verdict about you. That was information about conditions. And what you have now that you didn't have before this video is a way to see the difference between the system running on evidence and the system running on resemblance. That difference is small. The pause it creates is small. But the door it opens is not. You don't have to go back to who you were before the disappointments. That person didn't have the information you have now. You get to go forward as someone who knows exactly what the system is, why it built itself, and where it has been misfiring. That's not a small thing. That's the part that changes first.